this video we're going to look at securing additional areas of our application. We're going to look at creating an administration controller, which is going to allow us to administer areas of this site. The first thing we're going to do today is just create a new controller. So I'm using Notepad++. Again, there are other editors out there. I'm just used to using Notepad++, which is why I'm going to use it. So on the left hand side here, I've opened up my folder as a workspace. So you can see I've got the root of my WAMP folder here, so C, and then WAMP64 www. And then inside the app folder is where I'm going to find my controllers. So I'm going to expand this. What I'm going to do is just duplicate this home controller. So I'm going to open it up in my Explorer. I'm then going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it in place, but I'm going to rename it to administration. I'm going to open up that file, and there's a couple of important changes we need to make here. So we're going to change the class, so we're going to call that administration. Now it's important this name here, this class name, matches the file name. We've been through that before, but make sure that matches, and it also has to have an uppercase letter. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to load a new views folder, which I'm going to call administration. Which I'm going to call administration, and then I'm going to add in a welcome template into there. So now if I open my views folder, you can see in here I've got no folders now. Now what I've done in this example here is I've written administration, which I haven't spelled correctly. So I've got an administration folder now. Now I need to create that. So I'm going to say new folder, administration. And then inside there I'm going to create a new PHP file called welcome, which is going to be our template. So I'm going to call it welcome.php. It's going to ask me to change the file name or file extension, that's fine. So I'm going to say yes on that, and I've now got my welcome PHP file. I'm going to close the Explorer for now, because I've actually got my workspace open over here. So now if I click views and administration, you can see I've got my welcome file. So I'm going to open that up, and there's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do, just for display purposes, I'm going to add in the word welcome, and then to the administration controller, and save that file. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go straight into my browser, and I can visit localhost/website, which is our WAMP root, and then I'm going to type in the word administration. Okay, and you can see straight away I'm getting that text. I'm getting welcome to the administration controller. So I know I can get into that. It's not protected, but that's where the issue starts. That isn't protected, but it should be. So the next thing we're going to look at is how to create a filter, and the filter is going to check that we're logged in before we access particular or certain areas of our website. In this case, the administration area is going to be one of those things we're going to protect amongst other things. So to enable that protection, what we're going to do is go into our app folder, into config, and we're looking for a file in here called filters. Okay, so you can see the full path there, C WAMP64 www app config and filters. So I'm going to open that file, and inside here we can see that I've got loads of standard settings. Now this is a new feature in CodeIgniter 4, and it's quite a good feature, and it allows us to protect specific areas without having to write or repeat code. So in this case, what I'm going to do is add a new alias in here, and I'm just going to call it auth. Now you can call this whatever you like. This is just a nice simple alias. And I'm going to duplicate this line. So CodeIgniter /filters, and then I'm going to create a new file elsewhere, which I'm going to show you in a second, which I'm going to call auth filter. So I'm going to call it auth filter, and then it's going to be an instance of a class. Okay, so now I've got this in. I've got my new filter alias, so it's just an alias, just a name at the moment, it's not doing anything. I now need to go down here where it says filters, and I'm going to create my filter. And CodeIgniter's documentation in this file is actually quite good in that it gives you an example of a filter. So what I'm going to do is just grab this first of all. I'm going to go inside these square brackets, and I'm going to paste that straight in. However, I'm going to change the name of this filter to auth to match my alias. Now you can see the example is logged in, so we could have actually used that up there, but I'm going to go with auth because that's what I've named it, just to show you it can be called whatever you want it to be called. Now inside here we've got some settings. So we've got a before action. Now a before action is something which is completed before we load an area of the site. So in this case, before we load the administration control is what we're going to protect. So in here I'm going to change these. So these are controller names, and then after the / is the method. So my controller I've just created is called administration. I do want to leave / asterisks in there because I'm going to password protect everything inside that controller. What I'm also going to do, and this is just an extra level of protection, is I'm going to type in administration in this second parameter on its own. So that's my filter set up, but I now need to go and create this auth filter file. So to do that, what I'm going to do is navigate into my filters folder, which is here. So this is part of the root, so I'll just minimize some of these to show you. So we're inside app and then in the filters folder. Okay, so in there you can see there's nothing in there other than a git keep file. So I'm going to open this in the Explorer and I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it authfilter.php. So I've now created my authfilter.php file. I'm now going to go into this and edit it. So I'm just going to close this because I'm going to use what I've got open on the left hand side here, which is Notepad++. I'm going to go back into my filters folder. I'm going to open the auth filter, and inside here is where I'm going to add some standard code. Now I'm just going to show you very quickly where we get this code from, but this is the same for every filter, just you customize it based on what you want that filter to do. So in this case we're going to use it to check that the user is authenticated before we allow them into this area of the website. In order to find the standard code, we can go to CodeIgniter documentation. Now this is the same for every filter, but I'm just going to show you very quickly where to get this from. So in your browser, you go to codeigniter.com/userguide/incoming/filters. Now we can actually just come straight to the CodeIgniter 4 user guide and go to controllers and routing and then controller filters. And we can see here that it gives us a standard code snippet called creating a filter. So we're going to steal all of this code here and we're going to pop it straight into our auth filter. Okay, so that's it now saved into our auth filter. So the next thing we need to do is load our session, because we're going to be doing this based on a login, which means that we need to know that the user logged in. Remember in the last tutorial we set up the login system with a hashed password and we allowed them to log in and store that login information in a session. So the first thing we're going to do is load the session library. So we're going to say session, and this is going to be the path to the session library. This path's always the same, so it's something you're going to get used to as you continue to program. So we're going to say in this case, load the session library, and then we're going to make use of this now. So that's now going to be an object. So $session is now an object name which we can use. So we're going to write a simple if statement which is going to check that they're actually logged in. So we're going to say check that we have a session and the user is logged in. So we're going to start off with our standard layout for our if statement, and then inside here we're going to write some conditions. So we're going to say if there isn't a session, so we can start off by checking using $session. So if there's no session object, then we can't log in anyway. We're then going to say or, which is indicated by those double pipes. If we do have a session or a session object, and the parameter within that session, which is logged in, which we set up during our authentication tutorial, does not equal true, so i.e. we have a session but they haven't actually logged in at this point in time, so that needs to be true in order for us to access this area. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set an error message and then we're going to redirect them back to the login screen. So we're going to say session set flash data. So a piece of flash data is just a piece of information which is carried to the next request. So it could be as simple as a message, it could be a header, so for example 301. It's only going to last for one refresh, so we're going to write this once. So we're just going to write a message to say that the user isn't logged in and they need to be authenticated to access this area. So the area you are trying to access requires authentication. That's our flash message written. Now we're going to do the redirect. So we're going to return, in this case we want it to be the last action. We're going to say redirect, and we're going to send them back to the authentication controller. Now again, because we're working in WAMP, there's an extra part to this URL which is just /website, and we're going to say send them back to the authentication controller, where it's going to prompt them to log in. Okay, and that's it. That's now our authentication challenge written. So again, what's going to happen is before we access anything which is set up in these filters, so in this case administration, so anything in this controller at all, then we're going to challenge them. We're going to check that they've logged in already, and if they haven't, we're going to set a message and we're going to send them back to the login screen where they can log in. There is one last thing I need to change in here, and that is the name of the filter. So again, remember this needs to match this file name. So in this case it's called myFilter, which is the standard CodeIgniter code from their documentation. We're going to change that to be called authfilter. Now what I'm going to do is go back to my website in the browser. In this case you can see I've got an error. Now the reason why I've got an error is because I've actually included the class with the wrong path. So you can see it says class CodeIgniter filters and auth filters not being found. So I'm just going to pop back into my filters file here, and I'm going to go back to where I set up the alias, and I'm just going to change CodeIgniter, that's their standard filters, and I'm going to change it to app, which is going to be my filters. So remember, this is just a file location or a file path. So app filters or filter. Now if I go back into my browser, refresh that, you can see it's now took me straight to the authentication screen or straight to the login screen. So again, we'll just try that again. So administration, and you can see it very quickly redirects me back to the login screen. So now if I just log in, click sign in, I'm not going to remember that, I'm going to go back to administration, and you can see I'm now allowed in. So that's now successfully protected that authentication area. Now you can do this with more than one controller, or you can do it with just specific methods within a controller. So in this case I protected anything within the administration controller, so I'll just show you that very quickly. So in the administration controller I'm going to add in a new method, so public function. I'm going to call it users, and this is going to allow me to view the users that are on my system. I'm going to return a view, and I'm going to create a new view just to show you that this is a different area. I'm going to call it administration and users. Okay, I'm going to go into views and create that new view. So I'm just going to copy this welcome view and rename it to users. I'm going to go inside that now, and I'm just going to say welcome to the users area, and that's just going to show me that it's a different area that I'm protecting. Okay, so go back into my app, website/administration, which is fine, /users, and you can see I've now got my users area. So again, controller name, method name here. If I don't put a method name, I go straight back to the home of the controller itself, which is the index function or the index method. So now that I've done that, I just want to quickly tweak the filters just to show you that you can actually protect just one area of a controller. So in this case I'm protecting the whole administration controller, but I'm just going to tweak my filters, and I'm going to go down to where they're actually set up. So remember, we're using the alias auth, which loads the auth filter file. We're saying before, so that's before we show anything on the screen or before we load into that controller or method within that controller. And what I'm going to do in this case is get rid of this second item here along with the comma, and I'm going to change this from administration / asterisk, and we're going to change this to users. Okay, go back to my browser, and we're not going to see anything change just yet because we're still logged in. So what I am going to do is I'm going to just show you very quickly in Chrome how we can see this cookie and how we can delete the cookie so we can log out. Now later on in this tutorial we are going to go through removal of the cookie or logging out properly in the application, but I just want to show you very quickly, because it is useful, how we can view the cookie that's created by this website. So to do that I'm going to click these three dots up here, I'm going to go to settings, and then in the search I'm just going to put in cookies, and you can see it gives me some options here. Now the one that I want to look at is site settings here, and then cookies and site data, and then I can see there is an option which says see all cookies and site data. I'm going to click that, and then what we can do is have a look through here, and you can see CodeIgniter has created one cookie. That's actually the website itself, so that's not this computer or this machine. Now the one that we're looking for is called localhost, and we can see it's indicated by this WAMP server icon if you're using WAMP. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see it's created my cookie. Okay, so to log out of this now, what I can do is I can actually remove that cookie. So I'm just going to click delete, and then if I go back to this tab, which is the website running, and go to administration, I should have no problems accessing that because that's not protected. But now if I go to my users method, you can see it's prompting me to log in again. So again, I can go to administration because we just removed the filter from that, but I can't go to users, which is password protected. So if I log in, I'll just show you that now working. Okay, so we've got website, administration, again that was fine. We're going to go to users now though. Okay, we can now get back into the user area. So that's a good way of setting up your filters and a good way of protecting areas of your application based on your authentication system, which we'd set up in the previous tutorial. The next thing for us to do, just to complete the whole registration system, is to add the logout functionality. So in order to do that, we're going to add an additional method into the authentication controller. So I'm going to go back into Notepad++, I'm going to go into controllers, so app, controllers, and then authentication, and then I'm going to scroll right to the bottom of the file, and I'm going to just grab this just to separate my methods, just a comment line, and I'm going to create a new public function called logout. Now this is just going to be a function which is gathered or used using a get method. So what I mean by that is it's something which is going to be clicked on, as in a link, or it can be accessed directly in the URL at the top of the screen in the address bar. So we're just going to put in authentication /logout to log out of the system, or we can create a direct link to that. So inside this, we're going to use our session again. So we're going to say session. We can call this whatever we want, it's just a variable name. We're going to load our session settings. Like so, and again you'll get used to typing that line. It is the same throughout the whole app where we use it. And then a simple command to kill off the session, which is going to enable us to log out, is just destroy. So on this line we've created or instantiated an object called session, and then on this line we're using the method which is built into that object called destroy, which is going to kill off that cookie for us and log us out. Once we've done that logout, we simply want to redirect back to a location. So in this case I'm going to redirect us back to administration, which is where we're prompting for the user to log into now. And we're going to make sure that they're logged out. It'll pop back up with the login screen to prove that that's been the case. Now before I do this, I'm just going to go back into my filters, and I'm just going to tweak that back, because I'm just going to Control Z it and bring in the original filter which protects everything in administration. So now that I've got that, back into my browser, and I'm going to go into administration just to show that we're still logged in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this address to go to authentication /logout. Okay, now we can see that it has actually redirected, but it's gone to authentication /administration, and that's my fault. It's because I put the redirect in wrong. So we'll go back to authentication controller, and we're going to redirect to website /administration. Again, the only reason why we've got this in here is because we're using WAMP. Okay, so if I just go back, I'm going to log in again and just go back to that same location just to show us it's working properly. So /administration. So again, this is our protected area. I can go into users as well, again protected with our filter. I'm going to show us logging out now, so it's authentication /logout, and we can see we're taken straight back to the login screen. Now just to show you this has actually logged us out, I'm going to try and access administration/users again, and we can see it pops me straight back to the login screen. So that's now our login functionality all created. Thanks for watching today. Remember to subscribe and like this video.